All righty. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Dominique McGee, and I am the Woman of Gold. And today, this is going to be the conclusion of our Wives Who Work series. And I have a very special guest today. I have Mrs. Kerryann Larrieu. Hi, Kerryann.
Hi, Dominique. How are you?
I'm doing great. So just wanted to thank you again for joining me for the Wives Who Work series. Would you do me a favor and introduce yourself? Tell us about your business, what you do, and also about your devotional.
All right. So, like you said, my name is Kerryann Larrieu. I am actually, like your title says, wife who works. So I'm a nurse by profession, and I currently work full-time as a nurse, but I also have a non-traditional type of business, which is a ministry, but it is a business because, we do require the same things that regular business do require, funds and all of that. And then I'm an author, and I've written my first book, which is a devotional for married women. Modern Day Woman of Proverbs 31 is the name of the devotional. So, we'll probably get a little more into that later on,
Okay. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're going to get into that later on. So tell me, what inspires you to become an entrepreneur?
Okay, so I grew up always thinking that I was going to have my own business. I never knew what my business was going to be. I just remember one time my mom asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said I wanted to be a ballerina, and she was like, "You should be a businesswoman, make your own money, do your own thing." And that was like my thing after that. And so I grew up wanting to have my own business. And so it wasn't my thought of a business was never a ministry, but as I got deep in my faith, I realized I had a calling on my life for ministry. And so I started my first ministry, which is Christ is Calling Ministry, mostly a mission and Christian support ministry that I use. I do mission trips to Jamaica so far. That's what I have done, with a dream of growing it to a point where it'll be more, spread out more than just to Jamaica.
It's pretty interesting how, as parents, we sow seeds into our children. So I like how your mom was just like, "Oh, what about entrepreneurship?" And that kind of stuck with you.
Yes.
All the way up into your adulthood. So that's
our parents influenced. Yeah, our parents definitely influence, our ambitions.
Yeah. And so the second thing I was going to say or ask was, can you explain a little bit more about Christ's Calling? I'm unfamiliar with missions. So what is it exactly that you do with Christ's Calling?
Okay, so Christ's Calling Ministries, it really is a family or self-funded ministry. And what I do usually, I've done 2 years already, because this is pretty much, it's still fairly new, I would like to say, because I initiated this in 2014. So it's only 4 years in. And because it's a family-funded ministry, I've only been able to do every other year for a mission trip. And what that means, so usually this year, 2019 coming up is going to be my third mission trip. And usually I do some fundraising to get that done. And I would usually do like a gala at the end of each year before the mission. So that would have been this year, 2018. Except I decided I want to do something a little differently. So I might have like a spring concert or something to raise funds. A part of that also entails, let me talk more about the actual mission, what I do. So what I do is actually we collect clothing, school supplies, toiletries, food items, and I ship, say, maybe I've been doing 4 to 6 barrels that I ship to Jamaica ahead of my going down there. And when those get down there, I get someone to pick them up, usually my mom is helping me, so she's usually the one that picks it up, and we distribute that stuff. And then usually it's 1 week long. One year we ended up doing some medical stuff where we checked blood pressure and blood sugar. Because I'm a nurse, I usually try to incorporate that in there. But because my ministry is small and it's a family thing, it's a little hard to have all the bodies I need to do that. So we only did the medical part of it 1 year. But we go out to families, the old, the sick, and shut in, and we visit with them. We give them a bag of groceries. We pray with them, and we move on to the next. So we do some community work. And then my favorite part, my most favorite part, is actually the part where we have a fun day, is what we call it in Jamaica. But it's where we have the children come out, and we have, them play games. We give them their school supplies for back to school when school reopens, and ice cream. And, we set up almost like a store with the food, the clothing items that we bring from here, and people just take what they want out of it. And it's so fulfilling. It's amazing. Like, I'm always brought close to tears, or actually to tears, when I see how effective it is, and, how it helps people. So that's what I do when I go every other year to Jamaica. In between, usually I'm posting maybe some devotionals or devotional quotes on the Crisis Calling Ministries page, which I have given a break for a while because I've taken on a full-time job, and a working woman, working wife, it takes a lot. So, but those are the other things that I do. Just like I was doing a blog, just a lot of little things outside for the Christian support part of it. Mm-hmm. So when I'm not doing missions, I'm doing Christian support, which is the devotionals, just encouraging people and so on.
Awesome. That sounds great. So explain how individuals can help you, can or be a part of Crisis Calling Ministries.
So this is where my book comes in. So that's one of the aspects of how we raise funds for this ministry. I sell the book that I wrote. I've donated it pretty much to my ministry. And so most of the proceeds, what is not coming back out, put back in for the money that I used to purchase the books or whatever, goes to my ministry. So, so far, ever since since I wrote the book, pretty much everything has been going back into the ministry. So that's one way to support or become a part of this, is to purchase a copy of Modern Day Woman of Proverbs 31. And that's a book that's available on Amazon, and it's both in Kindle version and in, the hard copy. So that's available. And then when we're doing events, for example, we've done yard sales, we've done galas, and this year I want it to actually be like a spring concert. I'm still in the throes of planning that, so I'm not quite sure what the final decision is. But usually we'll have postings on Facebook to let people know. And then if money is not a part of it, people can always donate money. But if people don't, not everyone wants to do that. Another thing that can happen is you can donate to the school supplies. We buy a lot of composition books, pencils, crayons, all that stuff. We have lots of that we take down there, because we try to cater to at least 100 kids when we go down there. So we try to have at least 100 of everything. We usually are over, but so you can donate the actual supplies that we would like to give away down there. We take gifts so we can play games with the kids or with the grown-ups, because we involve the grown-ups in there. They have to bring the kids. So we have something for them. So we can play games with them. We give them prizes when they win Bible storybooks, actual Bibles, just about everything, book-wise. We do a lot of books, but then there are other things that we do involving corporate. So if you have something that you think would make a nice gift for an adult or for a child, that's something you can donate to me. The Crisis Calling Ministries page, I will be getting it back active for the beginning of the year 2019. And there will be a lot more postings on there for people, to get involved. So yeah, that's how they can help out at this point.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. I can't wait to get involved with that. It sounds so amazing, and I'm so glad that we're connected to each other, because I just love your spirit to just give um to the community, and it's excellent. Awesome. Thank you.
Well, well, thank you. I think I have a story. I remember
Yeah.
us. I remember growing up with my mom and stuff, and there were things we wanted and didn't have, and so it wasn't a surprise to me that God has called me into ministry, where I'm a giver. I've always told people that is one of my gifts, is giving.
Mm,
So so I'm not surprised God is leading me in that direction, because I know I have a personal place there. So
mm,
yeah.
mm. Excellent. Um, so that's a really good, you mentioned that your all proceeds to for your devotional go to Christ's calling. So that's an awesome segue into the book. Can you tell me what inspired you to write the devotional?
Oh my gosh, Dominique. Well, I have been trying to write a book since, I don't know, forever. I always knew I wanted to write a book. And I spent a lot of my college years trying to write this one book that was a little raw, was nothing going to be Christ-like about it, but I just couldn't finish that book. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I got saved, I figured the book was not going to be appropriate to come out of the fingers or the pen of a saved woman. And so I kind of turned the book, and I tried to turn it around and make it into something different. I wanted to tell my story. And so as I was trying to do that, it just wasn't getting done. And I kind of realized that it wasn't time for me to tell that story yet.
Mm.
And so I found myself one day studying Proverbs 31. Now, this is not the first time I've ever gotten into Proverbs 31, but I found myself getting in a quiet place in the basement and reading. And about night number 3, it just came to me to write the book. And I was like, I can't write a book about Proverbs 31. Too many people have already done it. I'm new to the table. I'm not a seasoned preacher. I'm not a seasoned ministry leader. What do I have to say that no one else have ever heard? And I don't know. I just started writing one day, and this book took me literally from the time I wrote it to the time it was published. It was, I want to say, just under a year. And that alone was amazing to me, because here I was trying to write another book my whole life. And this book took, even the money to get it published and all that. God just worked it out. And so that's where my inspiration came from, is out of my own personal study. But I was just seeing it in a different way. And it was really helping me at my current job, that I was working at the time as a nurse. So it just was perfect timing and everything.
Mm. Great. Oh my goodness. What an awesome story. So about how long did it take you to complete the devotional?
The devotional took me, I would say maybe about 3 months to actually just write it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I usually do my writing on paper first before I type it up. It did take a little longer, but I was doing my study when I would say within 3 months. And then I had to rewrite it, or type it up rather. So that was the longer part of it.
Okay.
But yeah,
So why Proverbs 31? Why what do you think specifically drew you to that?
I think at the time I was struggling with some things. I think I was struggling with my job. I was in a job in which I was very, very miserable. Um, I think there was some selfishness about me sometimes. And I just think also I've always heard of Proverbs 31, and it is the story of this virtuous woman. And I kind of felt in that moment, in that season of my life, I wanted to be better. I wanted to be that virtuous woman. I wanted to understand better what it meant to be a virtuous woman. Because even though I've heard Proverbs 31 and all that, prior, I never really paid enough attention to know what a virtuous woman. And somewhere in the book I mentioned that when I think of a virtuous woman, I would always think of the old-fashioned type of woman who, wear long skirts and they wear certain type of hairstyles and, certain type of things. So I never had a real understanding of what a virtuous woman it was until I really got into that word and started to really study it. And I got more than I went into it for, because it helps me with my job. It helps me to learn to accept my job, how to do my job like a in a Christ-like manner, like a woman of God, not complaining. It just helps me even be a better wife, where I'm supporting my husband, because that is what the woman of Proverbs 31 does. She does her own thing, but she supports her husband. They love her, and she shows them the respect they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. I just love how God uses our writing, the gift that he gave us to write. He uses that to help us. I'm sure
Absolutely.
I'm sure you got deliverance from writing the devotional, and also just your studying and just having that time with God. I think that's amazing.
It was very fulfilling. Like, I actually, because it's been 3 years since I wrote my book, and sometimes you forget what you write.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently I've been dealing with some challenges at work, and I decided what I want to do is start to have a devotion when I get to work. I take my 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, and I chose that book again. I chose my book to actually lead my devotion, and as soon as I started reading it, and like, I'm being reminded of these things that I was just being refreshed, and like, oh my gosh, I'm reading, it is my book, and excuse my immodesty here, but I'm realizing that I am learning and relearning things from this book. And that's why I know this book didn't come from me, because I didn't have none of that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
to be reading it again and still be finding nuggets in there to encourage me, to uplift me, and to make me a better person. I know that it was God.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so obviously, you are a wife.
I
Um, so
am a wife.
yes. So what was it like, sharing, or what is it like, sharing your visions, with your spouse, as far as, let's talk about like the devotional, or I'm not sure if you started Crisis Calling Ministries while you were married or before your marriage, but but were you nervous? Were you excited? How was it sharing?
I think I started Crisis Calling Ministries kind of on my own. Like, and this was before Modern Day Woman of Proverbs 31. So, I was still that woman. I was married, but I was making some of my own decisions without, talking to my man. And so I've learned. But how this happened was, it was just, I feel like it was in my secret space with God when I was realizing that he was calling me. It was mostly in my car. I was crying, and, so finally I think I made the decision before, and I can't tell you like, details of the step-by-step process, but in general memory, I think I actually decided what it was going to be, decided on the name, and then I told him, I think I'm going to start a ministry. And my husband is very supportive, like very supportive of me. I told him all the time, he's my better half, and I mean it. It's not the cliche. He supports me. He makes me feel like I'm doing something worth doing. When I'm
Yeah.
discouraged, he motivates me. And so when I went to him, he always is accepting, and he didn't quite know what a mission entailed either. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, when he had his first mission trip, and he still tells me to this day, he was very uncomfortable. My husband is a military man, but when you're going to countries that are not as developed as the U.S. is, it's a challenge for some people. And so he had an experience where he's never really had before. We actually stayed local for a ministry. And so it was during that season, he was like, yeah, I'm not cut out for missions. So I'm like, well, I can go alone. He's like, I'm not going to ever let you go alone. So we have to compromise. because he's not going to let me go alone. But at the same time, I want my husband to be as comfortable as it's going to allow him to be doing a mission. So, so we talked about the ministry. I talked about like the first gala I did. He was like, he'll always ask me, you think you're ready for this? Or you think you can pull this off? And if my answer is yes, he's got my back. So when I talked to him about my ministry, he's like, okay. And we kind of learned as we went along. So it wasn't like I knew what I was doing. I'd never been on a mission trip before. It was always something that I wondered about when I was in college and the hurricane hit in, was Katrina, I think it was. I wanted to go on a mission, but I never was able to go. And I was dating him at the time, and he was like, no, you ain't going over there by yourself, And so this was a passion, something that I always dreamt of doing. And God allowed me the opportunity to do it. So he jumped on board. He was very supportive. He learned a lot during that season also. He saw God's hand come through for us in so many ways. We have so many stories, which I can't get into right now because, but yes.
Okay. So
did I answer your question?
Yes, you answered.
Okay.
So in what ways do you think we can encourage our spouses to continue to be supportive of us?
I think sometimes to let them know we're supportive of them in what they're doing kind of paves the way per se, for them to be supportive to us. I feel sometimes when we are so passionate about what it is God has called us to do, we can get to a point where we make it feel like what we're doing is more important than what they're doing. And so I feel like one way to help them, to help us and to support us is to show them that we support them, to show them that what I'm doing is not more important than what you're doing. Even if this is what's putting food on on our table, it's not more important than what you're doing. And I think once we're on that page where we're showing them that, because that's the way I guess I feel we are expressing love to them. It's like, your stuff is important too, baby, and that kind of helps them to continue to support us.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay, so you are a wife, you are a nurse, and you are an entrepreneur, and you are a mother, and those among many different other titles that you have or things that you do. So how do you navigate? What advice would you give to other wives on how you navigate?
When you just recognize that you have some weaknesses, there are limitations because of your humanness, and when you're trying to do a lot, you have to give yourself grace to do what's necessary for you to function in the best way possible. And so my way of doing that is to take the rest when I get it. Sometimes the house is a little bit messy, but sometimes it's sparkling clean. So I have to give myself that type of freedom. And then at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is to make sure the family, my household, my husband, not the household as in cleaning and stuff, but making sure my husband has what he needs, my children have what they need. And that will give me peace in itself. When this job that I'm doing now, it was a recent promotion. And so we do a lot of emailing. And I found that I was coming home with email on my phone. And my husband was starting to not like that because he verbalized it. And so I said, you know what? Email is not that important to me. I'm taking it off my phone. When I leave work, I'm leaving work. I'm not taking emails home with me. I'm not taking work home with me. Unless, of course, I'm on call. So I had to do little things to make sure that I'm not stepping into and taking away from my family's time, So.
Yeah, work-life balance.
Yes.
That's important. That's extremely important.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay, so one last question. What advice do you have to wives who are entrepreneurs or who have careers or both? What is your number one advice?
Oh my number one advice, I would say it's really to give yourself grace. Accept where you are in life Accept that you're going to make some mistakes. Accept that in growing, you have to make some mistakes in order to grow. So if you accept those things and know that they are going to happen, but don't let those deter you from your goals, or don't let it discourage you. I think that we'll all be successful. And again, that depends on your definition of success, because what is success for one person might not be your success. Your success might just be able to, put food on the table, do whatever God sees your success is.
Mm-hmm.
Then just accept that. Don't try to be somebody else's or somebody else's version of success.
All right. So that concludes our interview. Wow, this has been amazing. Thank you again for just taking your time out to speak with us about your experience as a wife who works. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close out?
I think we touched on everything. Just to encourage the wives who are doing what they're doing, even if no one sees what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you need to know it. As a wife, you need to know it. That way you don't need someone else to tell you for you to feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I think sometimes, especially with social media, we get so carried away, we get so caught up in what everyone else is doing. And I just want to encourage my fellow wives out there. Do what it is you are supposed to be doing, and know for yourself that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because nothing else really matters. Just what you and God think about what you're doing.
All right, great. All righty, so all of Kerryann's information will be linked in the video. Be sure to join the Woman of Gold community for exclusives and deals and discounts on upcoming products and events.